Gina put out a set of controversial tweets over the summer in 2020, and she got a big pushback from a lot of people on Twitter, and a lot of people were already trying to get her canceled from Lucasfilm and have her fired. Now, the social media post that finally apparently justified Lucasfilm was her post where she compared herself to a Jew in Nazi Germany, or her political movement, right? Because she identifies as a political conservative. And that apparently was way too much. Now, whether that itself really was it is unclear, because Disney has a very tangled history with the Nazis themselves and with fascism. So I doubt they were genuinely morally outraged, but it definitely created a huge controversy and put them in a very, very delicate position. But we have been getting reports that for months, Lucasfilm was looking to get rid of her. So this had been in the works for a while. And what's interesting is apparently they were very close to giving her her own series. If you looked at the announcement for the new Disney shows, one of them was called Rangers, and it was assumed she was going to be a big part of that, if not the star. There was a lot of back and forth whether to keep her, whether to make her a star. Again, it wasn't foreclosed that they were going to fire her. But I think cumulatively, because it wasn't just her tweets on supposedly transphobic issues, right? She put out quite a lot of controversial stuff. Black Lives Matter, no mask, things that could be read as pro-Trump. I mean, again, she's very careful not to be outright pro-Trump, but it could be read as that. So she just put out a lot of controversial tweets and social media posts, and that really fanned the flames. And again, remember the summer of 2020 was red hot. There was riot, the pandemic was still going on. There was just a lot of things happening that really probably Lucasfilm was like, we don't want to get involved in this. Just please calm down. Don't do anything on this. The recent post of Jews in Nazi Germany was probably too much, and that's why they terminated her. Star Wars only had a very good long stream on this. It's very even-handed. It's long. It's 2 hours, but I think he had a very cool, even-handed take on the whole thing. He's very conservative. I'm more on the left. And again, he does not like the sequel trilogy. He doesn't like Ryan. I have no problem with the sequel trilogy, at least for the most part, except for Rise of Skywalker. So we're coming at this very differently, but I think we both agree that, it was not good to fire her. But he's a little different because I'm much more free speech. So he agrees that it was probably necessary to fire her, but he doesn't like what they did and what happened. So we're going to hear him and Matt Jarbo go back and forth because there's some interesting added details that they add to what happened in terms of the context of her firing.
Leading to that argument a lot. Matt Jarbo is joining me to talk about this.
Hey, what's up, man?
I'm kind of just shocked, bro. How are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm out doing deliveries right now, and I'm just kind of I have a free moment, and I'm like, oh my god, because I just saw from one of I think it was a Hollywood Reporter writer, that apparently Gina was supposed to have her own show.
Yeah, that's what I have up now. It's she was going to get her own series that was announced during the Disney investors meeting, and they were planning on firing her for 2 months, but just didn't know how. And this was like the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, this is I mean, that would make sense as to why she started cozying up to the Phantom Menace.
Mm-hmm.
Why she started hanging out with 3PO and going on with Jeremy and everything else. I mean, if anything, she might have been trying to mount some kind of Zack Snyder-like defense where you just have this massive groundswell of support that will be your vocal champions.
That kind of feeds into the fun of the Lucasfilm War, the Civil War that they're going on. I can't imagine the narratives that are going to be.
Oh my God! Yeah,
by this, this is going to be a crazy year now because we thought things were dying out. We were like, okay, it's kind of clear. A lot of the Doomcock stuff is fake, and no Lucasfilm Civil War. We're all kind of realizing that's fake, and now it's like, shit, it's here. What
about it as a Civil War? I mean, what you have is you have a star of a show
saying that she was going to be saved by Jon Favreau. I mean, me and you know that's fake, but a lot of people.
Well, and the thing is, I would believe something like that. I would believe because he said that he wrote the part for her, So he created Cara Dune with her in mind, and that of course is going to be very personal to him. So I get that. However, you don't go to Hollywood, you don't work in Hollywood and tweet out anti-Semitic shit, and then expect to still keep your job.
Mm-hmm. That's working for a company like Disney, like the in studio. They don't tolerate a lot of bullshit like this.
No, they can tolerate the anti-mask stuff because she probably still wore a mask even though she just didn't like it. and they can tolerate all sorts of other stuff, like the election fraud nonsense or whatever, because all that was going to be cleared up in the courts, and we're past that essentially. But the anti-Semitism, that you just, comparing your political ideology to the plight of the Jews in World War II Germany is never going to be a good sign.
No, yeah, I liked what you said on your initial stream about it today, where it was like when you're in Hollywood, you don't mess with, like, you don't say things about the Jews and whatnot. Anything.
And I know, but someone is like, "Oh, you're racist for saying that." And I'm like, I'm not saying. It's like, it's a known fact that there are a lot of people of Jewish faith who live and operate in Hollywood. This is not an unknown fact, and we still know that, like, 6 million people. 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. 11 million people total died in those camps. We know that. That's an established fact that people have been trying to argue with me all day as well, which is like, oh my God, how are we still in this year having those conversations? But whatever. And her then coming out, like, if she wanted to come out and say, like, I feel like I'm persecuted for my political belief, I would not fault her for saying that, to be honest with you. I might not agree with it, but I wouldn't fault her for saying it. I'm like, all right, it's kind of dumb, but that's it. But what it was just like, now it's possible that, and to give her the benefit of the doubt, because let me just be clear, I don't want her fired.
Yeah.
I'm a lefty, and I don't want her fired. I like Cara Dune. I like Gina Carano. I have forever. So I'm like, I want her to just, like, not be stupid is all I want.
And it seems like she kept pushing the envelope to not even being stupid, but just kind of edgy. Like, she knew she was feeding the flames of this culture war, and that's what really grabbed this and took it further. And I think she was guilty by association. And Disney likely looked at this and said, this is a liability, because she's associating with Phantom Menace people who are always saying that, like, Kathleen Kennedy should be.
All right, so apparently they were very close to pulling the trigger on her own series, and they were going to do it on the announcement day for all these other shows, but they pulled back because of her tweets and other things. An added thing which they note is that she did get close to people like Jeremy and Drunk 3CPO. Again, I have nothing against those people. I think it's fine. You want to associate with who you want to associate with, talk to who you want to talk with. For instance, Robert Meyer Barnett has talked to Jeremy. I don't think he's a neo-Nazi. I don't think he's a fascist because he does that. Again, people want to talk to people, that's fine with me. I don't make judgments about that. Again, except in obviously rare cases. But, you can speak to who you want to speak. I'm not going to make judgments about that. I mean, I've been on Matt's thing a couple times streaming, and I think he knows me, and I follow him on Twitter. But Matt has his own kind of past, and I don't justify or excuse his behavior. I think he's moved on from that, but there you go. So just because you're following or liking somebody or you support their material does not mean you support every position. So I think it is mostly a corporate thing. What happened with Disney is that she just put out too many controversial tweets, too many controversial social media posts, and Disney as a whole does not like the controversy. And the immediate clapback is, of course, well, what about Pascal? What about people who are more on the left? Why is their stuff not being held to account? Well, it's kind of apples and oranges, and I'm not going to go into the whole issue of Trump and fascism. I'll do something separate on that, because I think there's a lot of mythologies about that well, he's very innocent. No. There's a lot of good evidence he does support those people. But I think people forget is that he deleted some of those tweets, right? He put out a controversial tweet comparing Trump supporters to the KKK, but he got rid of it. So I think the issue here is more Gina does not come from an acting background. She doesn't come from a celebrity background. She's a fighter. She became famous that way. She's not a trained actress. Favreau having her in mind for this role, she got very lucky and all those things, but she's not really from an acting theater background. And I don't think she understood kind of the norms of Hollywood that, yes, you can push things to a certain extent, but you don't want to push them too far. And I think, but that's her personality. I also think we have to be a little bit more sophisticated, that maybe she wanted to get fired and she wants to be kind of this right-wing conservative media star, because it is very profitable. I mean, Glenn Beck is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Sarah Palin's worth $30 million. So again, being kind of like a right-wing celebrity is very profitable. And she could just made a calculation saying, I actually am better off being kind of an outright right-wing celebrity and going that way. And The Mandalorian pays very well, but again, she could make much more money being a kind of right-wing celebrity, because there are Hollywood conservatives, there are Hollywood reactionaries. So I don't think it was just the politics. I'll just end finally on this difficult issue of Jews in Hollywood. I am just going to say this. I do study these things seriously. World War II, Jews, Nazi Germany. I know German. I know how to speak it and write it, so I can go through a lot of these documents like Mein Kampf. I'll just say maybe this was an issue of genuine outrage, but you find a lot of these stories and rumors and myths about World War II. They're not based on really anything. I'll just note one thing, which is still out there, that, for instance, Hitler is homosexual or he's gay. And there is no evidence. I mean, zero evidence for this. You go through serious biographies, there is zero evidence that he is gay, but it's still out there. You can just go through tons and tons of anecdotes and tons of alleged facts about this war or about Hitler, and there is no real basis to them. But I agree, these are very sensitive issues, and so if you're going to wade into them, you got to be very careful. And I think she was again appealing to her fan base, her audience, and just didn't care. She was just going to say what she wanted to say. And, she's not from kind of Hollywood or celebrity background. And so she's sort of like, this is who I am. And I understand that. But I also think we've got to be careful that maybe she was planning this ahead of time as well. And she kind of knew she was not going to stay at Lucasfilm. So it's kind of on both sides. It's a lot of positioning and kind of PR things going on. All right, this has been Star Wars Analyzed on the Gina crisis over at Lucasfilm. Thank you for listening. Please like the content if you can. Please comment below. That helps the channel. Thanks for listening.